All right, we're gonna tie a river rat real quick. Hopefully my squeaky chair's not bothering anybody. But all right, we're gonna tie a river rat real quick. So you're gonna start with 6/0 pink thread and a predator shank. This is a 55 mil predator shank. You're just gonna bring your thread back to the back of here. I'm using 6/0 Simperfly. It's just hot pink, floral pink. You're gonna tie in some schloppen. And this schloppen I had a custom dyed by Spent Fly Fishing Materials. It's got this really cool UV look because it starts with a white base, and so it shines really nice. Who knows if that matters, but it's pretty sweet. You pull back your schloppen feathers to give you your tie-in point, and just tie it in at the tip, but not right at the tip, because then your first wrap will have really short fibers, and you don't want that. So you'll come back, and you'll notice in this video a lot of my thread wraps aren't exact, and that's just because, especially with a mouse this big, it's just not going to matter. And then also there's a lot of glue involved for durability. So yeah, I'm just tying in synthetic mouse fur. I think the color is chinchilla. Then I'm going to tie in synthetic marabou. I sourced this myself. I don't think you can get it in fly tying shops and for other fly tying places, but it's really nice, gives a lot of movement. This is just that synthetic marabou in black. I'm probably going to release it soon on the website as a tying material because I really liked it. Then I just kind of throw some thread over it and move up, and you want to move like, I don't know, 1/3 of an inch past that middle eye. You'll throw some glue down on the shank right to where your thread is, and the first one you'll wrap is your synthetic mouse. And you kind of just want to pull back those fibers carefully while you're wrapping, because you don't want them all in that glue, but you want the glue to adhere to the core of that mouse fur. So there's kind of like a synthetic strip, and you want that synthetic strip to be the thing connecting with that glue. And if you get too much glue on your fibers, then when you go to wrap other stuff through it, it doesn't really go great. And then when you come over this middle shank, see if you can see it, you want to go over on the top, not the bottom, because that'll kind of get in the way of what you're doing later. And then do 2 wraps after that middle eye, and just bring your thread through a couple times to secure it. Cut it out of there. Kind of pull back your fibers and tie that back. The next one I'm going to bring through, you can kind of pull it out so it's straight. This helps you wrap in the other materials if it's straight like that. So next one's going to be the black synthetic marabou. So you're going to kind of just palmer it through, and honestly you can spend a lot of time like trying to get it without trapping these fibers, but you're just going to trap some, and you solve it later when you comb it out. So just don't worry about that too much. And once again, everything goes on top of that eye, not, okay, I'm gonna do one more up here. Everything goes on top of that eye, not under it, because if you put a bunch of stuff under it, then or to the side of it, you kind of end up with a janky tie-in point for your, or attachment point for your split ring, which is where you put that front hook if you want to put a front hook there. So I just tie in that, and then I'm going to kind of loosely follow that with the schloppen. Doesn't have to be exact, but and honestly, your schloppen doesn't need to be like the most primo. This stuff's pretty cool, but it can just be like whatever. If you go to the back of like a dry fly cape, try to make sure you don't trap fibers. Go to the back of a dry fly cape, there's usually some sweet schloppen back there that you can use, especially if you're just tying a couple mice. You know, don't go out and buy 3 ounces of schloppen for it, because it's just going to be a waste of your time and money. So come on top of this, and you're right now you're gonna be like, oh well, you just trapped all of your mouse fur, and you're right, but I'm gonna fix it. So you do like 1 wrap in front with that schloppen, grab it, and then kind of pull it tight and wrap it in. Cut it off. A couple wraps in front of that. And you grab Velcro or a dubbing brush, and you kind of seat it in there and wiggle it, and the hooks will hook into that mouse fur, and then you can kind of just loosely pull it out. And what this does is it brings that mouse fur out from underneath your wraps of schloppen and marabou. I dropped it. And what this does is it protects your schloppen, and obviously it fills out the body of the fly. But when you have the schloppen, or you have the mouse fur in front of the schlappen. You know, fish's teeth and all those other things don't get down to it. And so it makes a really durable fly if you comb it out. So definitely comb it out. It's really important. And if you break some of your schlappen in the process, like some of the tips, who cares? It just doesn't matter. It's not going to affect your fly at all in the slightest. So just give it a nice good comb, and then I like to fold my Velcro and hit this a little bit in front and on the sides. Just make sure it's all good and combed out as best as you can get it, because now you have that full mouse body. So that's the first stage of tying. It's buggy, it's, you know, ratty. It looks really lifelike in the water. That schlappen really pulses around in the water, and then that fur gives it just that classic mouse look. So now what you're gonna do is take MFC high-rise foam. This is smoke gray. You can use whatever color. Some people use all black. This one is gonna be like a gray and black one. Maybe 3/8 inch thick, 1/2 inch thick, and then taper at the end. Take it and just lock it in right there, kind of right where the taper stops. And the 3mm high-rise foam is really nice. It just ties in perfectly on this size and width of shank, and you don't get a lot of foam compression. Jeez, so like right in there, you're gonna tie it in. You want to leave a lot of room. Like them have so much room for the head of this fly, and it's important because you kind of still have to do a lot of things. You take your mouse fur again. Just, I don't know, a few wraps, secure it. You're gonna take your synthetic marabou again, a couple wraps, just lock it in there. And you could leave it, like you could do the body and just do it extra long and leave it, but the problem is the schlappen's not that long, so you have to restart it anyways. So I've just found it's easiest to just restart the whole thing. And you'll tie in, and you notice I'm tying this in way farther back off the tip. That's just because this particular schlappen is really short up front, and I want longer fibers because it's for a mouse. So you can kind of just adjust where you tie in and what pieces you tie in, just depending on the individuality of the feather. You kind of just go over that. You see it's not perfect. It just doesn't matter. Throw a little bit of glue, and it becomes really nice and cohesive when you come over it with the fur. So 2 full wraps of mouse fur, and come up and catch it while it's going up is the cleanest way that I found. Come in, pull it back and throw just a couple wraps over that. Then you're gonna come through once again with your synthetic marabou. This is really sweet stuff, and when you mix it out, this stuff kind of just blends in. And I like 3 wraps of this, one right in front like this. Couple wraps just to hold it in place, nip it, and then pull it back and just catch that butt in just to make sure it's all locked in. You can kind of pull it out a little bit, but it's not going to matter. And then you're going to take your schlappen once again and just come through it. And I like 2 wraps of the schlappen. It's kind of what I aim for. Okay. And this is the reason why these flies are a little more expensive on my website. Is, oops, it's a longer tie, and it's a pretty material intensive tie. If you bought, you know, bags of schlappen, or if you bought, you know, big predator shanks and, you know, owner and gamakatsu single inline hooks and all that stuff, and you know that definitely gets expensive. And so just the time it takes to tie it as well is you know, prohibitive. For selling them at a lower cost, it just doesn't make sense. So so now you've got this. Once again, you can see not perfect on, you know, the thread wraps and everything. It just doesn't matter. You know, you're just locking it down and throwing fur and stuff over it, and the glue is really what's making this really durable. So now you're just gonna take that Velcro again and just make sure you're not trapping too many of those mouse fibers. They don't get trapped as easily on this middle section, just because it's only a couple wraps, and I think it just avoids getting trapped. You see, it just gives it that nice full look. And so now you're gonna part this, kind of part your schlappen fibers and try to get an equal amount on each side. If you can, if there's anything crazy, you can pluck it out of there, but this looks fine. And you pull them down and then fold it over. And I use the width, the length of this strip is usually just the width of the strip from MFC. You can see on this black one, I just leave it that length and cut it. But you want it like on this 55mm, you want it like just kind of overlapping into that eye, and that's just how I measure it. But find whatever you like and then just use that as a measurement. So I lash it down, I take one back, I lash it down, a little wrap in the middle of that, come back to where I started. So it's a 3-point tie-in. And I just nip the butt out of there with my scissors. And I'd like to get it pretty close on this one. This is the part that's kind of funky, because if you did this without glue, it would be miserable. And also, especially when you're first tying with these predator shanks, make sure that you check and you make sure that you're in line with the hook, that everything's going to be on top, because this is where this is a little bit off center of where this is. There's a weird twist, just a slight one. So if you tie everything in line with your vise, like look, if I put my vise vertical right now, it's keeled. So you have to look at where the eye is and tie vertical to there. So I'm gonna throw a couple in, and I just put just a little bit of super glue right here, and that locks the thread in. But more importantly, I take this is actually Simperfly double decker foam that I've separated. This is like a soft Evazote foam, and you don't have to do this, but I like this middle step right now just because it's been fun. You just tie it in, really compress it. That's why I'm using the Simperfly ones. You can compress it a lot without breaking it. Fold it over just a little bit shorter than that top one, and then tie it in again. And you should be able to just basically stack everything with that with very little buildup, because it's a really compressible foam. And you sneak your scissors in there, and you just cut out basically just any excess. So it should just look like it's like in there without any tie-in, which is, you know, nice, because it reduces the space that we're taking up here at the front. And you can catch that butt end a little bit, but it's not going to matter a ton. And then glue is essential for this part. If you don't use glue here, it'll slide off the foam and it won't work at all. So you have to just put a bunch of brushable super glue in there. Get your second just identical strip of that MFC high rise in smoke gray or tan or black, whatever color you're doing, 3/8 inch tapered. You stick the tapered bit right on that glue and just lock it in, and all you're doing is sticking it to that glue. And you see, if you didn't have glue, this would be like a nightmare right now. Like how high up that is, that tie-in point, this would be just it'd be all falling off. So, but it stays there because the glue just instantly adheres. Once again, make sure everything's in line, or else you'll finish it and you'll be like, oh, it looks great, but my fly is like, the foam's sideways of the hook eye. It's, you know, it looks terrible. So now you're not going to use the synthetic marabou or the schlapin. You're just going to use the mouse fur for this front part. You take the tip, you fold this. Let's see if I can tilt this so you can see. Pull this forward a little bit, put the tip of this in here, and you're just going to kind of cinch it down in between these. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just cinch it down in between there, just like that. Come forward, just 2 or 3 wraps, and it'll take care of it. Once again, glue, like really, really important on this. Brush it in front of there, a decent amount, locks your thread in. And so you're gonna take 1 wrap between these two, between the black, the second and third. You just kind of snug it. It doesn't have to be crazy. You don't have to pull it like crazy or anything. Then slick these back, and you're gonna put 3 wraps in front. If you can get it in front. And also the glue sticks to that, so it keeps your material from sliding down that bulk that you've built, and it glues it to the bulk so you can get a clean head. You know, so there's 3 full wraps. Catch it while it's going up, lock it in with a couple wraps, and then trim it out. And then you're going to pull it back and look for that tie-in and just, you know, nail it. And I like to develop a little like head here, so it stays nice for the tie-in, for the last foam tie-in. Just a little pink head, and you can use whatever color thread. I think hot pink looks nice. It's just like a cool accent on a mouse fly. It does nothing for the fishability, but if you could, you know, thread doesn't matter, so you might as well use one that's cool. So you part it again, part that foam down, and you're gonna fold this over. Well, you also part the foam back here between those two. So you part that, and then it's all parted down like this. You see that? It all looks nice. You fold it again like this, and you gotta look at how long you want the lip to be. So you look at where is the back of this landing. You want it to be like an even, like 3 stacks, so like kind of like that. And then you look at where's the front of this landing, and you want there to be enough left of that strip to give you a little bit of a head to push. So I like it about in there somewhere, and you kind of just have to, like, you know, do it a handful of times until you figure out what you like there. Cinch it down, you know, throw a bunch in, you can kind of rotate it, but the upturned eye of this predator shank will pop that up, and it will give it a head that pushes a little wake, which is really cool. So you're gonna take glue and brush it on your thread, and what this does is it just really gives you a durable finish, And you're just gonna wrap it through, keeping everything nice and neat. You're gonna cut it out with your scissors and stick the tag in down so it looks neat. There you go. And then this is just more of like a I don't know, like an aesthetics thing, but take your glue, you pull back this front tab. Let's see if I can turn it to you. Pull back this front tab, you put glue at the base of it, and you stick it, and that keeps that fur from coming back in there, which wouldn't matter if it did, but it just looks nicer this way. Then you take this front part. This is just a tiny bit long, so I'm just gonna barely trim it. And then you cut the corners off that front tab so it pushes a consistent wake instead of being like a gurgler. You know, it kind of pushes more of a consistent wake. And so what you can see is now it has this propped up foam, and this is where you're gonna put your cider, and that's important because if it's propped up, then you'll be able to see it. It'll put it facing you when you're retrieving it. And then in front of it is this little pusher head that gives you a nice wake. And then you have a really big tie-in point, which is important because you're using big tippet mousing, and you know you can't see in the dark, so it's nice if you have a big point to tie in. Yes, we'll just finish off this fly. Take a square of DURAGLO latex here, and put a little drop of here's our square. Put a little drop of glue on that. Let's see, just a little drop of super glue. You don't need very much at all because you're just positioning it with this, and then you're going to seal it with a clear adhesive. And you just want to put this kind of far enough up so that you're going to be able to see it. Sorry, I don't know if this part's going to be very visible, but I just gotta do this. It doesn't have to be right in the center because it doesn't really affect anything with how it fishes. It's just the visibility. There we go. So I just positioned it. You see it's not very stuck down, it's just kind of positioned on there. And take a clear adhesive, flexible clear adhesive. People use all sorts of things. Some guys use like Solarez Flex. I don't like Solarez. I don't think it bonds to foam very well, and so it just like flexes off of the foam. You need to use one that bonds to foam, and there's 1,000 you could use. You put a drop like that on there, right? You moisten your finger so it doesn't stick to you, and then you flatten it down. And this takes some practice to get it nice, but once you get it nice, it really is like a very seamless deal. So super durable. It will never come off this foam, and it also makes your foam fly more durable. So there you go. See if I can, you can see it. Yeah, there you go. So there's that river rat. This one, most of my river rats have 2 pieces of foam. They don't do this middle black one. Thought it'd be fun to do a black one for, you know, a 3-stacker for the video. And then obviously you take your split ring and you put it, let's see, you put a split ring and your upturned stinger hook on the back here, just like you would with like a Rapala. And if you'd like, you can take this other tie-in point in the middle. Let's see if I can find it. Man, it's kind of behind the fur, but you can see it, it's in there. You can throw a split ring in there and then have 2 hooks. That's what it looks like. It pushes an incredible wake. You can tie it in whatever color you want. This has been my, you know, favorite and most productive mouse fly. It's just been killer. It looks so good in the water. It pushes. If you haven't seen the video of it swimming, go look at that. It's insane. It looks just like a mouse. In that video, it looks like a mouse is swimming across, and you know, that hook hangs down, and with a single upturned hook, I have just had the most success with hookups for sure. So I think my favorite color is probably this one, the smoke gray, the black one, just the all black. See, this one doesn't have a middle tab, it's just 2 black tabs. And then obviously the tan one is awesome. And there's that, this one has a back stinger hook already. So pushes like this, and then that just sits down right there, and it's just perfect. So thank you. I know this is a really long video. Hopefully this doesn't bore you, but if you want to learn how to tie my favorite mouse, then there it is. All right, see ya.